You may have much play you some intro music.
All right, we're on. So what we're going to do is just do a little informal video talking about some things that we just did in our extended banjo retreat. It's 3.5 days. There are 5 people, mostly baby boomers. There's one guy, a pretty young guy. Looks like he was 40, but he must have been at least 50 because he does have 4 kids. But everybody else is baby boomers. So if you're a baby boomer, this may relate to you. So we'll just talk about some of the subjects that came up. And one thing is that every song you play has a very predictable and repeatable chord progression. And so everyone that's playing in a jam or a band has to keep track of where those chords change. And
Exactly.
you want to...
Yeah, the melody of the tune is going to dictate what the chord changes are, and one of the first things that you have to learn how to do is to learn how to anticipate where those chord changes are, and you can do that in a couple of different ways. Of course, like I just mentioned, the melody is going to dictate where the chord changes need to happen, but you can also kind of associate your lyrics with where the chord changes need to be as well. So if I did the chorus to Blue Ridge Cabin Home, and I was doing it in the key of G, then I would start off, oh, I love those hills above Virginia, from those Blue Ridge hills I did roam. Go ahead and do it. Oh, I won't you bury me on the mountain, far away in my Blue Ridge mountain home.
Okay, so in this case, you can rewind this video and notice, and David did emphasize the words that the change was on.
Exactly, right.
Now, the other way you could do it is simply to count. So I'm going to count as he sings, and this would be something you wouldn't obviously do out loud, but I'm going to be counting this in my mind, but I will be doing it out loud as well.
1, 2, 3. Oh, I
One,
love
two,
those hills above
C,
Virginia,
2, C,
from
2,
those
D,
Blue Ridge
G,
hills I did
G,
roam.
2, G.
When I die, won't you bury me on the
C,
mountain,
C,
far
D,
away in
D,
my Blue
D,
Ridge mountain home.
Okay, now you'll notice when I was counting and when David was singing and when he was playing that the words were emphasized, particularly the word on the first beat of each measure, which we're going to call the downbeat. And the downbeat usually is the bass part. So you could say that there were 2 downbeats. One is on the first note if you're playing a banjo roll, and the other's on the 5th note. And you hear it as a 1-5, meaning it's boom, boom, boom. So when we were just singing, or when David was just singing, he emphasized the words on the downbeat, and when I was counting, I also emphasized those. So if you're in a jam, you basically need to be able to hear that beat. And sometimes you'll be in a jam and the guitar player is kind of doing an offbeat thing, which sounds something like this. There's really no downbeat there. Now if you add the bass strings, you get a downbeat. And then I seem to have lost my picks, which isn't a big deal. And so now we have the, normally I play with picks. So we have the downbeat, and then we also need to have an offbeat, which gives you the drive. So the offbeat, which you'll hear, is between the downbeats. So just play a C static chord.
Okay.
Or I mean a G, I'm sorry. Okay, so that's the downbeat. So if you were to count as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2, it'd be on the and. Now once you have that rhythm laid out in any environment, then you can concentrate on playing what you're going to play. Now in a jam, if they aren't playing the downbeat, let's say the banjo player, I'll do a couple things the banjo player may do, and just to illustrate. So here, we'll start with the correct way, which is what's called a muted chop, and then I'll do some other things. So if you'll just play a static G. never know what you're going to hear. So one thing you can do as a banjo player is make the rhythm a priority in your practice. Now, obviously, when you go to your first few jams, you're not going to step out and start playing a loud muted chop, because you might be even a little bit shy or embarrassed. But if you make rhythm a priority in your playing and practice, over a period of 6 months, you will develop that ability to play really good banjo rhythm. And another thing that you were saying, David, about banjo in particular, is snapping the strings. And you probably don't have your picks with you, do you?
Well, I do, as a matter of
Well,
fact.
what I'll do while he's getting his picks ready, I'll tell a couple banjo jokes. So, what do you say to a banjo player in a three-piece suit?
I don't know, Geoff.
You don't know?
I don't know.
We originally were a comedy team. You basically say, will the defendant please rise? I mean, some people get really offended if they're a banjo player, but I've heard banjo jokes, but instead they replace the word with drummer, guitarist, ukulele player. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do some close-ups as David explains the correct way and the incorrect way.
Oh, we're done.
Now, David's been playing so long, it's very difficult for him to play incorrectly. So excuse me while I crawl over to the camera. There we go. So you can start talking.
All right. Yes, pay little attention to Geoff. Actually, one of the things that came up in one of our, actually a couple of different discussions during our banjo clinic was the fact that when some of the banjo players were playing, you could only hear certain pick strokes. For some people, it was the thumb stroke primarily, and the finger pick, the two finger pick strokes were not necessarily legible, or maybe they were a little bit messy. And then for one or two, it seemed like the thumb stroke was the one that was kind of messy. And one of the things that came up in discussion was the fact that you really, when you're holding your, I'm going to turn just a tad like this so we can kind of get an idea. Yeah, there you go. All right. When you're holding your banjo, when you're holding your right hand, if you flatten out the hand, one of the very first things that happens is that you now only have use of that end joint there, that first joint there. So you're not really going to be able to put a whole lot of emphasis if that's all you can do. So by raising the hand up just a little bit and almost making it kind of cupped like this, where you could maybe almost hold a tennis ball or something inside the hand, then right off the bat, then you have the full range of both of those fingers, plus you can get the thumb as well. Now when you're striking the strings, by rolling the fingers over like this and letting that pick lay straight on, then you're able to snap the string. As opposed to if you laid your hand like this, what's going to happen is the pick is going to scrub across the string. And if you're playing fast, it's going to sound kind of real messy, whereas if I go this way, then I've got, you can hear each individual pick stroke. So if I were to play just a little bit with my fingers like this at a little bit of a kind of a good clip, then it's going to sound like this. Whereas if I roll my fingertips back over and do that same pick stroke, you can hear everything real clear. So if I were to do like a real quick alternating thumb pattern roll and do it where I'm snapping the string, I've got my picks curled, my fingers curled over so that the picks lay dead on the side of the string, and I do that alternating pick pattern. each one of those pick strokes really, really nice. Now I'm going to roll my hand back over and do that same alternating pick pattern, and you will probably notice that it'll be somewhat messy. And that's primarily because these two picks are now scrubbing across the string, and there's no way to do a free stroke or even a rest stroke for that matter. What you're doing at this point is the surface of the pick is only gliding across the string. Whereas if we roll our finger picks over once again and we do that snap.
Talk about the muted chop and how when you move your hand around,
Oh, yeah.
it sounds different.
Sure.
And the whole sustain where you get a real sharp one. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And when we're doing this muted chop, I'm going to move my hand up and down the neck, and you're going to hear, and not only am I going to move my hand up and down the neck this way, but I'm also going to shift my right hand forward and backward, and you're going to hear different tone quality to what's going on. So, and I'm only going to do muted. I'm not even going to hold a chord. So if I were to just start here. So if you wanted something to really cut through in a jam session, your best bet is going to be up in this range so that it's nice and bright. Whereas if maybe a mandolin player were playing or a fiddle player were playing and they're already playing in a high range, maybe you shift and you're playing maybe in a lower range and just giving a little chop there that sounds almost like a mandolin. Nice fat sound.
Okay, and then we're going to break this video. We're going to end this one and then start another one.
Okay.
And you'll see me walk in front of the camera. It's getting pretty.